Can we just start?
Too late. Sorry, I literally clicked the button Giants, and then you said before we start. So,
All good.
Giants has a major reveal for us at some point during this podcast. I don't know if it's something he's going to share live, if it's something he's going to share after. Who knows? You might need to get involved if you want to learn this secret. See, that's what they call in the business a tease, guys. It gets people interested and it keeps them interested because we're going to grow out this population here from maybe the 10 to 13 of us who are engaged in this regular basis to I don't know, maybe 15 to 20 of the league that like to plug in every once in a while. I feel like our hey, so and so showed up for a podcast kind of has dwindled recently, but it's not like we have a time for any engagement or anything going on that people will be interested in or anything like that, right? Like it's kind of a dead time for the league, right, guys?
Yeah. Yeah, nothing really going on.
Yep. Should definitely just not log in for a couple days.
Well, that's the fun part. Like we're reaching the part of the draft where the teams that chose to take that approach to the draft are starting to get on the clock. So it's almost a hey, you know what? I've been able to ignore this and have no idea what's going on. Now I'm kind of checking in, and it's like, oh shit, all the guys I know are gone, and it's time to trade. So for those of us who recognize that, get involved, get these picks. But anyways, we logged off last time. We were waiting on the 209. We sat on the 209 for the entire pod. That sucked. We're on the 308 now. Jets are on the clock and have been for a little bit. And we'll see what they do and see if we actually get a live pick for the first time this year on the podcast. But nonetheless, we've got Panthers, we got Giants, and we have Eagles on. And we're going to talk about the second round from 209 on and some of the early third. And who knows, if things start moving, we'll get some live reaction to some actual picks. Because we haven't actually had to do that yet. We haven't had to, step in and say, I like that. I don't like that. This is why I like it. This is why it's too early and not be able to prepare for it. So, guys, are you ready to tap dance and do it on the dime?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is why I'm the best. It's true. That's why I love working with these guys. All right. So, like I said, we were at the 209. Browns was on the clock. And after much ado, at 1:02 in the morning, Browns select Bucky Irving. James, I think you had kind of identified that Tampa was looking for another running back, and then they didn't take one of the early guys, but Bucky Irving was pretty well regarded by members in the community. So, how do you feel about the landing spot for Bucky here?
You know, I love the RB coach down there. His name's Skip Pete. He was with Dallas for a long time. He's really good at getting the most at RBs. Last year, that line wasn't very good. They added some O linemen. They weren't very efficient in the run game. It's gonna be interesting to see what his role is. He's definitely a very efficient runner. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, not exactly the high end top 30 guy we were expecting to go, but someone that a lot of folks like, and he's got some pretty nice measurables and metrics that folks have latched on to. I don't know. I think Tampa's due for a regression this year, but that's just my 2 cents on it. And unfortunately, that impacts our next pick here too for the Patriots. 10, 11, and 12. Another 3-pick stack. I think it was Broncos headed in the first. I think didn't Pats have a 3-pick run in the first at some point, or am I misremembering that?
He originally had it, and he's the one that sent it to Bill, right?
He had two parts of it. He had Bill had 13. He had 10, 11, 12 at one point, and then sent Bill 11 and 12.
Gotcha.
So, anyways, here we are. He's triple dipping here. Jalen McMillan, Luke McCaffrey, and Jatavian Sanders. I will give Patriot full credit. I had a first-round grade on Sanders, and getting him at 212 is absolutely fantastic. I love Luke McCaffrey. When we started the process, I said that's the receiver I want to take at the end of the second. So taking him at 11, and I understand through the draft process, when you score exactly the same as your Pro Bowl brother, someone's going to reach and grab you in the third round. And that's what happened. So that's why he is where he is. But I'm a little concerned because he just started playing the position now. But nonetheless, when literally you have the same metrics as CMC, maybe I'm worried about the wrong shit. And Jalen McMillan, third receiver going from Washington to be in competition to be the third receiver in Tampa. Talent's there, but until people start retiring, this is going to be tough.
Yeah, but talent-wise, I really like McMillan. I think he passes the eye test. And this was just a great little run, I think, of 3 picks here for Pats. To really, I think he kind of scooped up some of the value that had crept its way into the second round here.
Yep, I agree. I especially like the Sanders pick. Of course, we haven't had a prominent Carolina tight end in a while, and we keep latching on to the youngest ones, hoping for the best. But hopefully, this is the one.
Yeah, I find all these guys interesting. With McMillan, I'm not sure what his role is going to be because the wide receiver for Tampa has already came out post-draft and talked about how Chris Godwin's moving back to the slot primarily this year. So if Godwin's primarily in the slot, and that's all McMillan has essentially played on tape, it's going to be really interesting to see his translation to the league, having to learn how to play out wide because he's not going to take a lot of snaps from Godwin. Luke, I'm going to be honest, I had an undrafted grade on him when the Commanders drafted him. I'm a Cowboys fan. I laughed. So you can have the blood of a Hall of Famer and have a brother who's on track, but, there's a JJ, there's a TJ, and there's a third one that no one ever talks about. So
the one thing I will say about Jalen is he feels to me, if you look at how Evans plays, how Godwin plays, and how Palmer plays there, Trey, Jalen's game seems to line up with Godwin's. So that feels like it's you're going to redshirt this year, and next year we're plugging you into that role. And if that's the case, I hate the value of the pick less, but then it's and I'm like I said, I just criticized you earlier for saying this is a fluid league. This is something that, you can't necessarily put this team and this pick and this player and crucify them for it because it's a mobile thing. But that's exactly what I'm doing here because this is a redshirt player going to a team who doesn't control any 25 draft capital that needs this player to produce immediately based off of how the team's put together. So it's kind of like, okay, I don't hate the pick for the value, but this is the wrong pick because McMillan's not going to, rack up more than 200 yards this year.
I mean, I don't know. We're going to go through the rest of the second round. There's no offensive player, I think, that is likely to be more impactful.
So and again, I apologize. That's exactly what I'm doing here is I'm getting a little bit haterade-ish because we spent the entire first round talking about how much we love everything. And we're starting in the second round talking about how we love everything. So I decided I'm going dark side. I am hating every single pick, especially my own. And we're going to see if that adds a little bit more color to these podcasts because, it's no fun if we agree on everything. It's nice to have ourselves validated, but it's not a good conversation and it's not good content. So that's not what we're going to do.
I love this.
The heel turn of Mike. This is the darkest timeline.
And just one last thing on Sanders. He is not a willing and good blocker. And I don't know what Carolina's doing on offense, really. I still feel like it's going to be Thielen's going to be the reliable guy, and then they're going to kind of just throw everyone else out there and go, we hope and pray. And they'll go from there. So it's going to be interesting to see what snaps he gets early just because he's not that great of a blocker.
Right. And again, I love the talent profile, but let's be honest. You have Mingo, you have Leggett, you have Thielen getting older. You have all these guys who aren't going to separate. And you're putting a tight end in a situation where nobody's going to be able to really separate from anybody or stretch anybody. I'm sorry, it's a great talent in a great landing spot for that talent, but because of everything else around him, he is probably going to fail because I don't trust anything in Carolina.
Yeah, well, it's also just weird because Tommy Tremble to me is pretty much as athletic. He's not as good at catching the ball. He's not quite the route runner, but he's a willing blocker. And then, they've also got Ian Thomas, who's been there for 50 years, that everyone thought he was going to break out. He's a really willing blocker too. So I have a hard time seeing him winning a lot of snaps over those two early, outside of, hey, we're trailing, and they might very well trail a lot. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm also just skeptical of like any tight end really producing their rookie year. So even if like he's getting the snaps, it's probably going to be underwhelming.
All right, so we'll shift it over from a triple dip on offense to a double dip on defense. Panthers going Chris Braswell and Brandon Fisk. Or Braden Fisk, apologies. Look, Fisk landing spot, Fisk roll. He's got a lot of great opportunity, but this reminds me of, and we looked at this before the pod. I did this on accident, but sometimes that's how good content comes together here. If you looked at when I signed Desjuan Johnson, the D tackle for the Rams, his projected sacks were based off of Aaron Donald's production. And, if I look at Braden Fisk right now, has not stepped on the field yet. We have no idea of his capability. His sack projection next year is for 8. So, sure, great talent, great opportunity. That's what you want to put together. Copacetic. This is a little bit aggressive, I feel, for D tackle.
Well, it's like we talked pre-pod. I think really when it comes to D tackle, it's just the factor of everyone beyond me and Seahawks did not value this D tackle class. So when you look back in the first and second round, you go, wow, there's 2 D tackles taken. And look at these people getting, Johnny Newton, Rukaroro, and, the other guys that are still left on the board. It's just one of those things where there's going to be a lot better value picks later. So for us to get as much value as other people out of this class at the position, we do need these guys to perform, better than everybody else. So it will be seen as to whether or not we can recoup some value based on that.
Yeah, and again, Braswell, I don't hate the talent. I think he's probably that third or fourth, best edge guy in this class. So I think the value is there from a talent. Tampa just seems like an entire team in turnover for me right now. So everything about that kind of scares me a little bit. Nonetheless, the talent's there and he's going to get opportunities. So I don't hate it. And at 213 to get sort of the DE 4 or 5 in a draft because everyone was, juicing offensive talent up the way they were, that's not too poor. So I think this is one pick where it's getting a great positional value and talent and overpaying for positional value and talent. But, that's
the Panthers.
That's my feel right now.
Yeah. Well, my thing with Braswell is everyone in Tampa outside of Yaya Diaby sucks. Joe Tyrone Shayunka they already declined his 5th. He's done. It's either he plays some balls out this year or he's done. And then beyond him, they've got Randy Gregory. So there's not a lot of competition for him to have to beat out to be able to start. And on top of the factor, they just paid Baker. They just repaid Mike. They're in contract negotiations to pay Antonio Winfield. They're going to want to give him an extended look this year because they need to be able to have some guys on rookie deals. So he'll get a real shot this year. And then if he can make something out of it, he'll have a really good spot on a really good line. So,
yeah.
So 215 here. Chargers taking Malik Washington. guys, this is why you have to update your board after the NFL draft actually happens. I love Malik Washington's college profile. The guy produced. He produced in a big way. He won in a lot of different ways. It was at Virginia, but it's still the ACC. Nonetheless, the prospect profile looks great. But he's there at the 6th round to the Miami Dolphins. And he's 3rd string and so locked right now. If this is a 3rd round pick, I love Malik Washington. This is a round too early.
He also seemed a bit better before. I mean, after this pick was, or before this pick was made, they had signed Odell. So like, even coming out of the draft, you could still be like, he could fight for the 3rd wide receiver spot. But they also still have, the white dude? What's his name?
Craig Raft.
No, not him. The former Jet.
Braxton Berrios.
Yeah, they still have Berrios. They still have someone else in the like. I agree. I love the talent, but yeah, I think he's just kind of gonna be buried, and like maybe he has like one game where he just does something crazy for coming in for like an injured player or something. But I don't know if he's even gonna suit up a lot of the time during the year.
If he was the only guy they took, I wouldn't be as happy with it still. But the factor that they also added Taj Washington, and him being the former 5-star recruit, and he went to USC and had some real flashes out there too.
Yep.
Like he's got a lot of real athletes he's got to compete with to make that roster.
Oh, they signed another one too.
Yeah, and then they also have the guy they took in the 3rd, 4th round still, who I don't think scored a fantasy point essentially yet.
Eric Ezukama.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah. Yep.
This is exactly what I was talking about pre-pod, is when you're taking people in this draft, what do you need them to do to pay off the draft pick that you're using on them? And let's think about the receivers that paid off that were taken in this range last year. You're talking about the Reeds. You're talking about the Tank Dells. You're talking about the guys who had a clear path to touches on the field in year 1 to go produce. That's who's getting taken in the early to mid-second. This is not that player. We were hoping he'd get drafted to be that player, but he didn't. So, sorry, Chargers. I've loved a lot about your draft, but I think I said all I can say.
We're really going deep on the negative takes here.
I'm all for it.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, again, what
Tell me
fun
what-
is a podcast going to be where it's just the 4 of us sitting there saying, I really like this pick. This is great. This is really a lot of fun. This is a great landing spot. Like, that's not going to be fun content. And look, if I get nothing but hate and nothing but, trades expiring for the next 3 weeks because of this, then shit, I earned it and I deserve it, and everyone can continue to be petty. But, let's actually talk about this stuff. There's a little bit of, obfuscation we had because we didn't want to share where we had guys valued, but the guys have been picked. Who cares? You tell someone they like the guy, who knows? Maybe they're going to send you an offer. Does anybody in this league hate getting trade offers? No.
Oh,
So-
that sounds fun. We should go back over the 1st round. I got some hot takes on where I had people done.
Ooh.
RJ.
We could do
No.
after the draft. We could do like after hours pod.
RJ, I don't know. Let's do the 2nd, and then we might need to do a rapid fire 1st round with that because I love that idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we can just grade every pick.
Anybody that took a defensive end in the 1st round, oh gosh, shots are going to be fired.
Atlanta Falcons, 216. Another one of these picks that never got traded because Falcons never
Never
balls
logs on.
to move some of this shit. That said, as the running back whisperer and the guy who's taken like 7 so far, I like the Ray Davis pick in this range. I think it gives an established floor for the role he should step into, and there is upside to it as well. So taking guys in this range, that's really what you're looking for, either the established floor with upside or you're looking to the path to major payoff. And I think Ray gives you that first one.
Yeah, I like this pick.
Yeah, it's possible he's going to be the goal line back for Buffalo, so that he might just fall into some touchdowns throughout the year.
Yep, a whole lot of 1 yard runs and a whole lot of 1 yard touchdowns in his future.
Well, I don't know if it's a whole lot because Josh kind of does that for him, but it'll be a handful.
The first half of the season, I think Davis will do it, and then when we start to get into games that matter, it will be Josh Allen. Like, all they're doing is saving him from getting beaten up too bad in the first half of the year, I'd imagine.
All right. Moving right along. We have back-to-back linebacker picks. Jags taking Cedric Gray. Cards taking Trevon Wallace. Both likely blocked from initial week one starting opportunity. They'd probably have to win the role in camp, and neither role is probably unwinnable. But it may take a little bit longer for them to get to the field, and that's just the nature of this year's linebacker class. So I think this is linebacker 3 and 4, maybe 4 and 5. So I don't hate it at that value, and especially at this pick range, but just the path to production, the path to actually starting to pay off, I have some concerns, but of the second round picks that we've really gone into, these I probably feel least concerned about.
Really? I hate these two picks. I think they were both of them just squandered mid-round picks, mid-second round picks.
With the true position change and the fact that there's not a lot of guys who are necessarily going to grade out as linebackers this year, and this could be a shortage, you don't like a shot like this there?
No. Nope. I would have taken slightly better opportunities at other positions and went shopping for another linebacker. I don't see these guys like getting an opportunity to play, and then we're gonna have another round of rookies come in next year, and they're gonna lose favor in the locker room and with the coaching staff, and I wouldn't be surprised if both of these guys were unemployed in 3 years.
No, talking about Gray and Wallace. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Gray myself. I can see where he can pan out, this, that, and the other, but I don't think he's ever going to be one of those A-plus dudes. And Wallace, to me, honestly, came out, had very similar notes and grades on him as Jamin Davis. I didn't think Jamin Davis should have went in the first round. He hasn't really worked out for the Commanders. And, Wallace just happens to be from Kentucky as well. He's just uber athletic, but lost a lot.
Yep. So, again, if you think about the linebackers you could potentially go acquire for these picks.
Yeah.
You're probably talking about the 160-plus range for young, 200 to 220. Again, I offer this pick for C.J. Mosley. I'm probably not making the deal right there, but I'm probably getting a counter.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree. I think every single pick after, I don't know, 215 or so, you should be thinking about what points could I buy that is going to affect me this year more realistically than any of these players.
Because, come on, guys. This is when we're horniest for rookies. We are all trying to trade into the draft right now.
Right.
Yeah,
But we're taking guys drafted in the 5th and 6th round.
They're all going to be Pro Bowlers. You don't get it. You just don't see it.
These are all going to hit the Puka career arc.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So after the hate, I have to spend a minute to like two picks. This is really annoying. I really hope you guys trash me on this one.
Nope.
No, I like
Robinson,
Theo Johnson.
first round edge pick for the Cardinals. Getting him a 219. Good for you. Just
Yep.
good for
Steal.
you. And then with Waller retiring, Theo Johnson has a relatively unobstructed path to starting tight end in that offense. Getting that tight end at 220, like
Yeah, I think Theo Johnson could have gone earlier, for sure. I agree. As like a Giants fan, he'll probably be involved. They're gonna cycle though. They're like it's gonna be Bellinger, probably way more than you think it should. But yeah, I think Theo Johnson has as good of a chance as any of the. Honestly, he might be the second most productive tight end in this class this year.
so. Again, you're talking about a guy who's taking 220.
Yeah.
Before we get through training camp, someone will offer a future first for Theo Johnson.
Yeah, maybe.
It won't be me.
That'd be cool.
Won't be you, but someone's going to look at, hey, I need a tight end. Theo's going to be a starter. He's a second rounder and will be in this. He has an unobstructed path to starter points in an offense that we don't know. Well, we now know who number one is going to be. We have no fucking clue who number two is going to be. So in a best ball situation, and that's what, $1 million contract? Like someone's going to offer a future first for that at some point because it's either going to get run up that way or someone's going to go Galaxy Brain.
Yeah. Just to circle back though, real quick on the Darius pick. I know we're just patted his back on it, but I'm on board with it being in the same range as the other two D tackles, and the same commentary of, look at all the other guys that have a chance to be just as productive. Maybe not year one, but career. I don't think it's a great value either. And I'm even shitting on my own pick in that grouping, but still.
So again, the one thing I will say, and I probably didn't watch as much tape as you guys did on him, but for there to be a differentiation between D tackle and edge, between the different, wherever you get your sports news from, is an interesting one to me, which means there's two embedded opportunities for upside. He gets moved from D tackle to edge because that's what he's playing more of, and an edge at a first round value, you're probably going to take it to 219 every time. The other piece of it is if Arizona actually uses him as an edge, but his position is D tackle, the D tackle bonus for anything for tackles, for sacks, for tackles for a loss in this league, if I could get a D end, a real life D end or edge, scoring as a tackle, that is an inherent advantage. So
Yep.
I don't know if Darius keeps this position or not, but any D end I can get who plays like a D end and has a D tackle representation and position here, sign me up.
I think majority of people though would agree that he probably ends up inside, especially in their 3-4. Unless they convert to a 4-3, and even if they convert to a 4-3, he just does not have the burst to chase down plays to the outside, where I want to keep him inside. So I don't see that being a long-term advantage for him.
I mean, he's kind of going to be a defensive end in the sense that he's probably not going to have a linebacker over top of him. But yes, he's going to be functionally used as a defensive tackle because all of the 3-4s, all of their linemen are functionally defensive tackles at that point. I love this pick.
All right, so we're going to pause the second round here because after much shaming, much degrading, much basically hate, the Jets didn't tease us the same way the Browns did on Monday night. We have the 308 coming off the board. The New York Jets selecting Marist Liafu, linebacker to Dallas from Notre Dame at the 308. Kind of live reaction to this. he was on my list in the third round and guys I was looking at for a little bit later. But draft capital, role, opportunity, and who he's got to overcome, it's a lot of upside.
Here's one of
I mean,
those
there's
hot
always
ones.
a lot of upside to a Dallas linebacker drafted in the third round, but they do this every year. There's like one thing that's, it's taxes, death, and Dallas taking a linebacker in the third or fourth round. Like, I don't know. I'm very skeptical that he'll see play at all this season.
Yeah, this is the red or black roulette bet in the casino. It's you're either going to hit and it's going to be a nice little 2-for-1 win, or 1-for-1 win, or you're going to lose and all your money's gone. It's like, okay, well, this either worked out or it really didn't.
Yeah.
I had him a tier higher than the linebackers we just talked about taking in the second.
So I see him as the long-term replacement for Van Der Esch and Eric Kendricks. So he'd be the Mike with Clark playing the Will and with Overshow playing the Sam role in our defense. Unless someone gets hurt, I don't see him playing a lot this year. And he's really instinctual, and he's definitely got some flashes, but he's another one of those guys where he's got a lot to work on. So I think it's probably is ideal if he doesn't see the field for at least the first 10 games or so. So we'll see.
I'm just seeing this trade that happened while we were on the pod.
Well, we'll get to that in a minute here, but that does put the Panthers on the clock. James, are you ready to take the pick live, or you need a little bit more time to sort out through offers and other shit?
He trades it to me, and I'll make it live.
I'm definitely giving people the opportunity to send offers before I make anything.
Okay.
Because I did have conversations with several people, and I've had some flowing in. It's just nothing I like enough to just go ahead and take.
All right, so maybe around 10 o'clock we'll revisit. But again, I didn't want to rush you into it, but I didn't want to ignore it if it was something you were ready to go and do. So we'll go back to the second round here and talk about these terrible picks and circle back to that in about 10 minutes.
Enough time for a counteroffer. Hey.
Could be. As Giants also mentioned, there was a trade that was processed. The Eagles and Patriots. Eagles getting back into the third round at 317, the fifth at 514 for Trey Palmer. So, I'm sorry, Pat's picking up those picks for Trey Palmer. So, Goose has already pointed out that may be less than the capital he gave up to get him in the first place, which, hey, sometimes that happens in the offseason, but other times it goes the other way. But I think, especially with McMillan, we just talked about him in Tampa. You now have a bit of a target squeeze. But Palmer's role last year was not a bad one to have at less than $1 million. And, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think with them saying Godwin's moving to the slot, like, to me that means Palmer's the other outside receiver. So I really just like this price.
You just like this as in you hate that Eagles got him, or you just like it as in it's an overpay?
No, it's not an overpay. Well, it's not an overpay. I dislike that Eagles got it. I dislike that he went for a mid and third round pick. I think he's easily a second round pick.
Yeah, I feel like he's one of those guys that you want a second for him, you want to pay a third for him, and sometimes you win and you get the late second or the third plus, and sometimes you lose and you get the third and the 514.
Yeah, I sent him to him, and I can't remember exactly what I got in return, but I definitely do really like the player. I'm surprised he went for that.
Man, you made the trade. You have all of the tools. Look that shit up. It's not like you're on the clock or have anything actually to do right now.
I'm trying to look it up.
I drafted Palmer last year, so I'm just happy to have him back on my team.
Well, Pats is on the clock at 2:22. I'm sorry, so we had 2:21, which we didn't talk about yet. Marshawn Nealand, edge to Dallas, and a second round pick. Edge, again, that's where these kind of guys get taken, and that's why I love the Robinson pick, because if he goes at the end, this is where he's taken, because clearly that's where Nealand was taken. And if he stays at D tackle, that could be a benefit. But I don't know.
I gave him Trey Palmer and Trey Hendrickson for T. Higgins.
Yeah, so he was just a throw-in in that.
I wouldn't call that a throw-in. I wouldn't say Trey Hendrickson's worth T. Higgins.
I agree.
No, he's second-round valuation. Solid second in there, with where Hendrickson is a late first to get to T. Higgins range. So, all right. Pat's taking Braylon Trice.
Eh.
I mean, there's opportunity in Atlanta. Their pass rush is pretty meh, so I don't know much about the player, but from like just a team opportunity standpoint,
I mean, he probably just takes Lorenzo Carter's job.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's between Carter being there, who has done that kind of role before, between Ebiketie, who they've been trying to grow into that role for the last 2 or 3 years, and now Braylon Trice that they just took in the third round to potentially play that role, which they identified as a need. It's like, great, it's a need. Great, it's value for whoever's playing it. But can we really trust any of these guys are going to have the job for long enough to pay that back? Or is it one of those where hey, somebody wins and they're worth all of this? But that's just...
Because they still like Ogundeji there, and they still like D'Angelo Malone also. So it's 5 people for 2 spots.
Yeah. The weird thing with Trice is he's not very athletic. He's not good against the run. So you're definitely looking at like a third down pass rusher. But with how poorly he tested and everything, I honestly thought he was going to slide to the 4th or 5th. And I know he went in the 3rd. So I just... some of the tape on him is very hit or miss. So it's another project guy. He could become something, but if he becomes something, his high end is probably Yannick Ngakoue. Like that kind of production-ish, but he's not as athletic as Ngakoue. So he just doesn't have a high ceiling.
Wasn't Yannick like complete? Wasn't Yannick just like a complete athlete, like stud though?
Yeah, well, what I mean is just production-wise, he's going to have to live on third down, but it's just he's not. He's going to be one of those guys like the Ngakoue, the Josh Uche, the third down pass rusher guys. Except for whatever reason, he was really good at pass rushing, not uber athletic, but can't stop the run at all. So he's just one of those really weird profiles. Like it's just he's strange.
All right, so here the Eagles trade in to the 223, take Tyler Nubin. First safety off the board in the late second, so somewhat holds with, I think, most of the league's valuation for when a lot of these guys go. It is safety 1, but...
Was it last year that safety 1 went at 301 and there was kind of an uproar about like that's the Minnesota safety Lewis? Was that last year or was that the year before?
That was last year. Yeah.
There was some remarks at the time about how that was bad value. How the turntables have turned.
It was bad value.
So then, RJ, if it's bad value for safety 1 last year to go at 301, why is it good value for safety 1 to go at 223?
Oh, no, I'd just say it was bad value because of how the player panned out. I don't hate the idea of a late second, early third on any of the safeties that are expected to step into a starting role day one. There are roughly 3, maybe 4 of them in this draft class, and all of them I think you can take at that point. The ones last year, the majority of the really good safeties, or what were considered safeties, we all knew were probably going to get converted to cornerback, or were debatably a cornerback. The Daxton Hills, who was the other one?
Brian Branch.
Brian Branch, Cam Taylor-Britt. So like those guys were kind of corners when we were taking them. Was it last year or the year before?
Year before.
Oh, okay. So I'm getting them a little confused. But yeah, I don't know. Some of these guys could turn out like Lewis Cine. Hopefully they don't.
Yeah, I think just too early to take a safety. So could be right, could be fantastic. Just I've learned my lesson on safety. But
I will say Newbin is likely like stepping into a starting role for the Giants, and he might play kind of in the box a bit. So like there could be like higher tackle rate than you might expect. And he's a big playmaker. That's like one of the things the Giants loved about him. So he could be involved quite early.
Yep. All right.
I think he's a stud. I really, really like the player. I think we're talking about a guy who's the potential to be a future All-Pro.
Yeah, so James, why don't you talk about the player, and then if you are ready to make your pick, you go ahead. If not, go ahead and introduce the Cardinals pick. I got to take a quick piss. Sorry, James. Go ahead and say what you're going to say about Newman. Did you lose James?
I think he said he liked the player.
Yes.
Giants are better than the Cowboys, and
I mean,
yeah.
we can move on to the next one while you.
Yeah.
This pick made me sad. This was the other player that I was actually debating on taking when I took Newbin, Audric Estime. I mean, it's a crowded backfield, but it's assumed that he just steps into the backup role, right? For like the direct backup for Javonte Williams. Might not necessarily be a third down back or anything.
Yeah, I think based off of Peyton's comments, like he views him as the first and second down running back, or a first and second down running back. So like that, I mean, that's Javonte's role, right? So it'll be interesting. Like I assume Javonte's job is safe for his current contract, but I don't know, something to monitor.
Yeah, definitely agree. Yeah, I think they'll definitely give him like some looks this year. I think they are unsure of Javonte enough to where they could give somebody else an opportunity. But I think Jaleel McLaughlin also still keeps his little change of pace role.
So let me get this right. Javonte, still there, still could be something.
For now.
Samaje Perine signed there last year, had a role, not going to be the primary guy, but looks like he's going to have a role. Jaleel McLaughlin, we like the change of pace. We like how he showed out last year. We think he could be a sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy gets added to that mix.
Yep.
What about Denver makes you think it's worthwhile to invest in the third or fourth running back in this offense? Did you see anything last year? You said, "Oh shit, you know what I need? I need more exposure to fucking Denver."
No, that's exactly why I want that running back, because it's in such a bad state that they haven't decided who's the starter in any position. And there's, it might not be this year, it might be next year, but they might Javonte may have fallen out of favor, and they're just like, you know what, we like the guy that we took last year, and just estimates the guy at that point.
It's a money problem. They don't have money. Javonte's not long-term there. If they can trade Javonte to anybody for anything, they will. and then they'll just hand the ball to Estime if they have to.
Well, again, we talked about this a little bit in last pod, and I think we'll redo the first round with a little more hate in our heart. But if the payback explanation and thesis is so-and-so in front of them gets traded, I know there's been a lot more trades in the NFL. There have been in past years. But come on, this ain't Madden.
Oh, I mean, I see Samaje getting cut, so like he won't be on the 53 once they make it through training camp. So like Javonte, Estime, McLaughlin.
My only big issue with it is that's a guy that we already know is a first, second down back, so you take away catches in a PPR league. And he's not a home run threat running a 4.56 and a 4.71. So there's not enough there for me to get excited about the prospect over other players available.
Same. All right. I'd say probably what I had as the last of my second round receivers. Actually, Tez, I would say probably was second to third round. I'd have to double check exactly where I had him, but he's probably the tier break going at 225 to the Jags. Again, I'm going to rant for a minute. I don't get it with some teams. I fully get the thesis for Jags. Titans are going in. Texans are going in competition for the division, but I don't have a clear path to it. I have some good long-term pieces. Let me take a year and make 25 more my year. Seems to be his approach to the offseason. And I don't hate that. But this is just really blocked. Like, is there a more blocked receiving core for receiver targets right now than Baltimore? Because there's not a whole lot to go around in the first place because of how run heavy they are. They've got a lot of draft capital, a lot of pretty good players tied up in the first two receiver positions, the first two tight end positions, the running back position, and the way that they run the offense. So it's
there's also never really been a proven, like there's not a good track record of fantasy receiver points there either. Like Hollywood, even in his best years, still finished as receiver 18. Zay did really good last year, but I think he's still receiver 22, and that's the top target, and you're not even getting the top target guy. So there's not a lot of high end hope.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's for the draft capital, for everything. Everything of this profile screams. He's got to come out in year one, catch 80 balls, put up 900 yards, and he finds the role in the offense and just never lets it go. And that's not Tez to me.
No, he's a new school Matt Collins. I run fast, I run down the seam, I catch a ball, touchdown. I go back to the bench.
I agree with basically every assessment that you guys just said. Like he's 100% blocked in there. The only way that he's relevant and justifies that type of draft capital is if he is a guy that just forcibly takes one of the starting roles and then puts up 70 plus receptions and outplays everybody that has more draft capital than him, because there's a high likelihood that he's just not a relevant player by next year.
Right, and that's my thought. Is to be clear, it's if your off-season strategy is playing for the future, fine. Let your draft picks mirror that. And I'm going to call myself on this in a later part of this episode. So don't think that I'm not living by my own rules here. But just the pick didn't feel congruent with the strategy. And not a huge fan of the player. All right.
I think it was just the position of need for Jags, because he's kind of got Ridley, and that's like it. Now that he traded Slayton.
I going back to like your initial statement, this was the last one in a significant tier break. Like everybody else is probably just roster fodder that'll get cut in training camp, where he's the only guy that even has an opportunity to really like stay with a team. So if you were, if Jags had it in their head that they were going wide receiver, then there was only one choice.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready to hate on another pick?
Oh man. We're ready for the hate. James, are you ready to go live here?
Oh, I'm about to get hated on so bad. I'm ready for it.
All right, let's hear it.
All right, guys. With whatever pick the 309, the Carolina Panthers will be selecting tight end Tip Ryman out of Arizona.
No way. Isn't he a? I want to wait till the pick's in the club. I'm going to wait until the pick is in before I share my thoughts. All right, isn't he a blocking only tight end for Arizona?
So the thing is he played at Illinois, and he didn't get a lot of options. But in the Shrine Bowl, he balled out. He was the guy of the week. He's 270 and runs a 4.6. And when he's shown a lot of upside and potential. To me, that Arizona system, they saw him and they're like, this can be our inline blocker so we can keep Trey outside as the big slot. I see him being able to fit in there and have kind of a Zach Ertz role. So I think he's got that upside. So we'll see.
All right.
I had a third round grade on him as well, so I don't hate the pick. But yeah, I have the same concern about role. But it's going to be, I think, one of those where because he's blocking, he's on the field, he's going to get some chances, especially in a best ball league as a result. Yeah, we're 4 or 5 tight ends here. We're taking the blocking tight ends already. I'm a little concerned.
Well, that's all that's left for the most part.
Yeah. All right. Well, that puts the Bills on the clock. We'll see if Eric is around and ready to pick. But again, appreciate not just the quick pick, but the live pick too. Anything that continues to generate content is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. Speaking of things that generate content, it's time to hate myself. Yes, I just hated on the Jaguars taking a 4th round receiver in Baltimore at the 225. And what was my brilliant fucking idea at the 226? To take a 24-year-old running back who was drafted at the 632 in the real life draft from New Hampshire. What the fuck do I know? But nonetheless, Dylan Lobb has been one of my favorite prospects this entire process. He has caught a shit ton of passes. This last year, 68 receptions from the running back position at New Hampshire. So in the offense where you get probably 2 tight ends seeing the field a good amount, 2 receivers seeing the field a good amount, you're going to want a running back who is a good pass catcher. That ain't Zamir White. So I'm betting on the opportunity. I'm betting on the profile. And it's either going to hit or I'm going to know that I missed big. Again, sometimes you're hitting singles and doubles. Sometimes you're swinging for the fences. And this is a swing for the fences kind of pick.
So
I feel like you could apply that exact logic to why you should have taken Tyrone Tracy instead.
Did you already know their plans with him and what they were gonna ideally what they're gonna end up using him for before you took him?
No, I haven't seen any of that anywhere. That's just my feeling of how they're going to use this player based off of the other players they have. So
okay.
I am.
He is one of those deep dynasty sleepers that people are very fond of, because he's going to get work as an H-back, fullback, pass catching, change of pace guy. He's going to do a whole lot of things, and he's going to take a lot of extra reps away from Mayer at the same point.
230-ish touches last year, about 1,500 yards, 16 touchdowns. I mean, in this kind of league, this is what you get your James Whites from. This is what you get your Dion Lewis's from. Yes, he's 206 pounds, probably soaking wet. But sometimes you take the big swing because if it hits, it hits so nice. And if it misses, I really didn't want that late second anyway.
Yeah, there's plenty of running backs in the NFL that are 200 pounds and make their money pass blocking, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, James White was very light.
Yeah.
Theo Reddick was really light. And he's just one of those guys that just feels like he can really carve out a third down role, especially on a team with Zamir White as the feature back currently. So
are we forgetting about Mattinson?
Sorry, go ahead.
Are we forgetting about Alexander Mattinson also being in that backfield?
I already heard he's applying to be a trash man in New Jersey.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Him and Amir Abdullah.
I have zero concern about Alexander Madison ever. But you made a good point. Tyrone Tracy was on my board, and that was the next player up I had for the 228. So I had the 228, traded away the 228, then reacquired the 228 because, God, come on, you guys have played along for long enough. You know this is what I do. So when I got the 228 back, my intent was I was taking Lobb and I was taking Tracy. Well, the Rams said, fuck you. And he took Tracy at 227. And I don't hate the pick. I think he has way more physical ability than Devin Singletary. I think if they're going to optimize what happens in that backfield with the most gifted running back, that's going to end up being Tyrone Tracy. So that's there. But there's still a little bit to me of the, how do I say it, the Keon Coleman factor. Hey, if you're 6'4", and you're 230, and you can run a 4.45 or a 4.5, and you can win basically any jump ball that somebody throws up there, how the hell aren't you an All-American? How the hell aren't you All-Conference? If you can do those things at that level, you should be producing at a certain level. So if you can do that and you're not, what's going on? Now, Tracy's, there's an actual backstory with a little bit more in there of how he was used at Purdue and what that system was and everything in that standpoint. That context matters. But there's part of it with Tracy's profile for me that just kind of says, if you're a poor man's, Gibbs, why are you going in the 6th round?
Yeah, I think it's because he was like a former receiver, so he's not a very refined runner. I think he's expected to be like a passing down back. I don't even expect him to be like the 3rd down back. I just think he's going to be like, the Giants like to use 2 RB sets a good amount, and I expect him to be essentially like the role that a couple of different folks have been playing behind Saquon last couple of years, where he's just going to be, he'll probably get like 3 to 5 carries a game and a couple of targets.
Yeah, I see them using him very much as a gadgety Rondell Moore type, where they're just going to throw him a couple of screens, do this, that, and the other. The Giants' offense, all their explosive plays are essentially Saquon, and he's gone. So they need to get some explosive plays somewhere. He's a guy that they think might be able to get him a couple.
So the other
out of the backfield, they drafted a LaFellow who might be able to help.
So the other truth of the matter here is they took Neighbors. He's a foundational guy. This is probably Jones's last year unless he turns his shit around. And frankly, if the Giants don't turn around, this is probably Dable's last year in New York. So this is one of those picks where doesn't look great right now, but by week 8, where there's an interim head coach and they're trying to figure out what the hell they have in their offense, well, the Giants have decided Tyrone Tracy is going to start the rest of the season. So again, there's a reason I had other players above him, but I see a path to return on the pick, and that's why he was going to be the next player on my board.
So who did you take, Mike?
Well, so
Take
I moved into the pick, and I think everyone was expecting that Rams' pick was imminent for the better part of last night and into the morning. And I had already figured out, I was taking Tracy, or as I saw it, there were 6 quarterbacks that were worth being in the first round. And then there was one other guy that was worth considering in any way, shape, or form in this draft. And at some point, people are going to look at the board and say, now's the time. And I wanted to beat that rush. So at 228, I took Spencer Rattler. Ends up behind Derek Carr, who, if I had to pick a quarterback situation to overcome to be the starter someplace, like this is back in the NCAA game where you do the, legend career mode, and you've got to figure out, do I want to go to Ohio State and be the 3rd stringer? Do I want to go to Florida and be the 2nd stringer? Or do I want to go to South Carolina and be the starter? And, sometimes you take that last profile because it's going to produce at some point, because you don't have a whole lot to overcome. And if you don't have a whole lot to overcome, you will score points. So, this could flop big time, because that's what happened to Spencer from the presumptive 101 to now a 228 in a 32-team single quarterback league, the 60th pick overall. But I think this was the end of realistically taking a quarterback until probably the 4th round, where we're literally throwing blindfolded darts anyway.
I also love that this was 2 picks ahead of Chiefs, who is the Derek Carr owner. And I'm not sure if he would have taken Rattler, but I have to assume it was at least like an idea. So he might have been shaking his fist a little bit.
I don't know, but I know Goose was asking for a 2025 second. If this pick made it past Mike, while Cardinals was on the clock, I probably would have offered that to Chiefs just to secure it, because Cardinals had 3 quarterbacks that he wouldn't get rid of in that scenario.
Well, again, and if my investment thesis on this is at some point Rattler becomes the starter, then I'm going to hold him until he either has that clear path or he actually has the job, and that's when I'll trade it.
Yeah, no, this is a terrible pick. I hate it. I'm disgusted. What do you want for Rattler, Mike? No, it's a good pick. Smart pick. This is exactly where you should have went, like somewhere towards the late 2nd, early 3rd. Perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think this was maybe the 2nd or 3rd best value in the 2nd round.
Yep.
Outside of the defensive ends that went in the beginning of the round there.
So what was driving me nuts was while I was waiting on the clock, because so many teams were trying to trade in. It's like, okay, is there someone I'm missing outside of Tracy and Rattler? And it was also the reinforcement, like, oh, these guys must be all trying to trade up for Rattler. So I've got to make this pick here. I got to stick a pick because So either I was a victim of a fantastic disinformation campaign, or maybe I'll end up liking this pick. Who knows? 229, Jonah Ellis, the end on Denver. We're in the range of the draft now where if you ask the random person who got drafted earlier, which pick is higher, the GM's pick or the NFL draft pick, you're going to see a lot of players go that it's a coin flip or you're not sure. And I think really Ellis kicks off that range.
Yeah, I really like the defensive end room in Denver, but I have no idea how snaps and production is gonna shake out. It's very possible that the old regime's ends are just gonna cycle out now, and Peyton's gonna be bringing in his guys, and I'm thinking Ellis is one of the first of those. I don't know if they drafted a pass rusher last year, but um, yeah, it's a crowded room. But Cardinals is not in a hurry for production this year, so
Speaking of a blocked player for production, I remember there was a part of this draft cycle where maybe you guys remember this too. Do you guys remember the time 2 months ago where Braylon Allen was the RB1 of this draft class?
yep.
I mean, yeah, I remember he was always pretty much in the top tier, or discussed as in the top tier.
Then he went to the Jets.
At the end of the fourth, too. I think everyone thought he might have second or third round draft capital.
Now he's Brees Hall's backup's backup.
Yeah. I mean, Brees, has torn an ACL. Like, it's possible that there is an injury history that could repeat itself, and then I think Allen would most likely make sense to become that role for their offense. But yeah, it's kind of Brees insurance. You're just banking on a Brees injury. I think he's going to be the workhorse for that offense. And I mean, it's a high upside pick. Like, we're at the end of the second round here. Like, you look at the players that are going after. It's second, third, fourth round, defensive players, and later if there's any offensive pieces left. So of the tier of folks that we're about to be looking in, he's probably top of the list just from his talent or athletic profile. But yeah, I think it's not likely that he sees a lot of work outside of injury.
Right. And again, I'm probably galaxy braining this, but you almost wonder if it's one of those where you look at the team and say, all right, what are our most valuable pieces? Hey, Brees Hall's kind of important to us. Gotcha. What's the situation he's most likely to get hurt? Well, it's probably short yardage situations where we need 1 yard, where we basically need him to run right at the line and pick up 1 yard. Well, can we get someone to do that for him?
Yeah.
Sure. Anyone good for that this year? Yeah, this guy Braylon Allen, he's 240 pounds. He's a fucking bowling ball. People like to think he's Derrick Henry. Let's just run him at that instead. Okay. So maybe he's the guy who goes for 60 carries for 230 yards and 7 touchdowns. Again, the other thing is, I feel like Rodgers, and that's the other side of this too. I'm going to bring the hate on some of this, but I'm also going to try and come from a different direction than I think a lot of the coverage has been. I feel like Rodgers has always had a hammer like this. Whether at the end of the time in Green Bay it was A.J. Dillon, what's his name, the running back who looked like a defensive tackle, Eddie Lacy. And I think there's one more that I'm forgetting. I feel like Rodgers has always had a big ass running back whose job it was to basically, get the ball 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage and run as fast as he could at a hole and hope for the best.
Yeah, because Rodgers doesn't like to do QB sneaks, so that's part of the rationale, is that they need to have that guy who can just get 1 yard.
So,
and again, maybe they are learning from if their most important piece last year, Aaron Rodgers, got hurt. What were they going to do? And then this year, if Brees were to get hurt, what are they going to do? Have a backup plan in place, right? They had Tyra, they had Braylon Allen. It sounds like sound football decision making process, I guess, from the Jets side for once.
Right. And again, if the expected outcome of this player is kind of what I said, the 5+ touchdowns, the 200-ish yards based off the touch, or a bigger role if Brees gets hurt, that will return value at this pick.
Yeah.
All right. Moving down to the Raiders. Adisa Isaac, D-end at Baltimore.
Yeah, I think from an opportunity standpoint, like I don't think they've brought back any of their vets yet. Like Clowney obviously signed elsewhere. Who else was there? Van Noy, did he sign somewhere yet?
He re-signed with them.
He re-signed. Okay, so
that's
they
the
lost
only one.
Clowney. They've re-signed Van Noy, and then they have the other two young bucks, OA and the Michigan kid.
Hey, James. James, you there, James?
No, he's not here.
He's not here, James. James, you're not here to talk about the Penn State edge. You're here to talk about that Penn Stater who jumped up, just being on the field with Chop Robinson, jumping up into the space. Man.
Yeah, he left like 20 minutes ago.
Well.
Anyways, there's opportunity I think in Baltimore for some snaps. So I like that, and I think it's a need also for the Raiders. So I think it kind of makes sense. Again, getting defensive end here who could be seeing any sort of snaps at a reasonable pace during the season is good value.
Yep. So I'll apologize to the podcast. That was a terrible pass by me. That was I'm going to no look and I'm going to hit my guy in the corner for the wide open 3, take the lead, maybe even get a bang. And not only did I miss my guy, I threw the ball 15 feet out of bounds and I caused the turnover. So I appreciate you guys picking up the rest of the possession, but that was just terrible execution on my side. So I've got to do better. Lions going back to back here, getting in the pool with Eagles, saying, I too will take a safety in the second round. Don't worry, brother. You're not alone. I will bear this burden with you. And then we'll take Cole Bishop. Which, again, we are thicken the range of safeties, and this was a top 60 pick in the NFL. Then Lions back on the clock at 301, grabbing Tyrese Knight. Again, had a second-round grade on him for our league. 4th round of the real NFL. Has some stuff to overcome to get to his role, but, you're not going to find unblocked linebackers at this point.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, definitely a lot better of an opportunity than some of the linebackers that have been taken. But it's basically right in line with where he should go. Love the Cole Bishop pick. Another safety that's just expected to be a day 1 starter.
Yep.
Right. But
speaking of blocked starters,
taking the step back, if I offered the 232 for every safety in the league, let's just real quick go into player stats, safeties, sort by points. All right, I'm probably not getting Antoine Winfield for the 232.
No.
Jesse Bates went for a second earlier this year. That's because I'm not thinking of the other safety in Atlanta. But I feel like Jesse probably goes for a second. Bynum probably goes for a second. Hamilton was drafted for a first. Julian Love, I think, went for a third in this league. I think part of that's
but that contract,
because of the contract. Josh Metellus. So we'll stop there. If you offer the 232 for Josh, think you're getting told no?
Yeah.
You guys say yes?
No, I think it's an instant decline. I think the first person that starts to consider it is around 15.
Interesting. I was going to say probably around the 7 to 9 range is when you
I mean,
start.
is that like right now or like in season you're getting offered a second round pick?
No, I'm saying he's on the clock at 232. Says, "Hey, I'm
Yeah.
thinking about taking a safety. Let me shop around and see. Hey, wonder what Daxton Hill is worth to the Eagles."
He's a weird one because we all know he's going to corner.
Who's safety right now?
But yeah, I would accept the last second round pick for Daxton Hill. But I don't know if a Justin Reed I don't know if I get Justin Reed for 232. I highly doubt I get Kyle Duggar.
No, you probably don't get Kyle Duggar, but that's because
So the range that you think the 232 could probably pull you is in that 160 to 180 range of a safety who's probably still in their early to mid 20s.
That's about right.
Kind of a question of why are we taking shots at rookie safeties at this range if we could go buy someone for that range? That's me. I get it. I'm the problem. It's me.
I mean, I've done that twice in this draft, and I can tell you that the majority of safeties in that range that are owned by people that view themselves as playoff teams. So I don't think you're buying safeties off of them. Like they're just going to go, no, I can't get a replacement at that pick.
I mean, you can also, like I said this earlier, like you can play that game with every single position that we're taking, like as of the last 10, 15 picks in the round. Like instead of buying a backup quarterback, Mike, should you spend 228 on something else?
Could be. Again, probably could have picked up some more points, but again, that's why it's the. I almost wish it was you submit your pick and submit your thesis. Great, you made that pick. Why did you make the pick?
Yeah,
I picked Spencer Rattler because I think Derek Carr is way over the hill, and at some point in the next 18 months, Spencer Rattler will be starting for that offense. And when that happens, there's an opportunity for me to flip him for more value than I just paid for him. That's my thesis for taking Spencer Rattler. If the baseline level of that safety that just got taken is 160 to 180 points, but the top guys are making 2 to 220, you are asking for them to hit a top 20 safety value if you're taking them there. There is no other way to recoup even your value if they're not a top 20 safety. That is the point I was trying to make earlier, is you're not leaving yourself out, you're not necessarily building your team, and you're not playing to the strength of the league of 32 rabid trading owners that even if you don't take what you need right now, you can go find it. Someone will trade it to you.
I mean, the other side of that argument too is the contract, having $1 million safety versus if you look at the market for the top 15, 20 safeties, you're probably looking at like a, I don't know, 5-10x increase in that salary. So if you hit, you have a value.
I mean, I can say, like, if you're taking one of the probably 4 or 5 safeties, the top 4 or 5 safeties in this, I don't think it's unreasonable if you're like, no, I like this particular player and I do see them finishing inside the top 20, because all of them do have an expectation of being starters. So, like, why did I take Newbin at 223? Because I fully expect him to be a top 20 safety. I expect him to walk in day one and just be Xavier McKinney.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
in fact, he's like more playmaking Xavier McKinney. Could be better.
Defended your safety pick. This one you'll have to get back on a little bit later, not to spoil it. But James, you're back.
Howdy.
We talked about an edge from Penn State, and I kicked it to you. And not only were you not in the corner where I was passing the ball, I think you might have been sitting on the bench taking a sip of water. So
No, he was in the showers.
I actually was. I did actually leave to go take a shower, believe it or not.
So again, I apologize if somehow that ball got through and hit you in the head while you were in the shower. Whatever happened was not just good point guard play on my part. But 231, Adisa Isaac from Penn State. I wanted to make sure I gave you the opportunity to comment since you do love you some Penn State athletic testing profiles.
Yeah, believe it or not, he didn't test quite as well as the other guys. I'll give it to him, though. He actually has more production. Believe it or not, out of the 3 Penn State defensive ends who've gone in the first round, he has more sack production in his time starting at Penn State than all of them. Yet he went in the last out of all of them. He's definitely not as explosive, bendy, bursty as the rest of them. But I really like the value of getting him this far down.
You go heel turn. You try and bring the negativity to the podcast, and you guys keep the love going. I should probably be proud of that.
I think after our pre-pod discussions, I think that was expected for you to hate on that Penn State edge pick.
I really do not like Penn State edges, but out of them, at least this guy has been productive. Essentially, like I'm not crazy high on him. Like I didn't draft him myself. I don't hate where he was drafted, and I would not be surprised if he ends up as the best defense end converted to the pros out of all 4 of the guys we've seen go in the first, or all 3. My apologies.
Well, like I said, you have the hope of being the point guard who's feeding the shooter for the wide open shot, and sometimes you throw the ball out of bounds. Sometimes you throw it in the stands. Sometimes you actually hit the guy who was there while he's in the shower. And sometimes you turn the ball over, and in the process of sprinting back to try and make up for the mistake, you get Giannis's balls on your forehead, and that's what just happened to me. So I'm going to let somebody else take the ball up this time because, my calls have been wrong here. So we got back-to-back D tackles. Pat's taken Johnny Newton, and Jets taken Rook.
Aurora.
I
Yes.
can't pronounce that name and not sound racist, so I'm just not going to.
I like the Johnny. I love the Johnny Newton pick. It's a defensive tackle, so I don't necessarily know how productive he's going to be, especially behind Payne and
Jonathan Allen? Yeah, I don't know if he's going to see the field much.
But he was productive at Illinois, and he's a good player.
So, believe it or not, the majority of his sacks actually came from being lined up over the tackle. So, maybe they just went and said, this might be the best guy to go rush the passer. And we might see him on third down going after the quarterback for all we know, because they ain't got shit out there. So,
He's too
try
small.
Yeah, but, people said Aaron Donald was too small, and they lined him up on tackles. Like, I'm not saying he's that kind of special, but he did produce, in the Big Ten. And most of his production, sack-wise, did actually come up from the outside. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I feel like Rook has a more direct line to production. Whether you like the talent, I like Johnny Newton better, but I don't know. If I was looking at a D tackle, I think I would have gone with the Atlanta guy, just knowing that he's got an easier path to the field since that D line is trash behind Grady Jarrett.
What do you mean? The Pats draft a bigger name over the actual talent that could produce sooner?
So there is something to be said for, even if you've galaxy brained yourself, and I probably am in this population, into Michael Penix being the right pick for the Falcons at 108 instead of the other multitude of things they could have done, then you realize, I don't want any part of this fucking team. Like, that's where I am with the real life Panthers, where it's in a lot of cases, it's, I'll take a little piece of this here or there. And I think I have Shy Tuttle, but I don't think I have any other Panther on my team. Because it's just kind of like, I don't trust that, the laws of physics are going to work as they should there. Like, in most teams that have successful cultures, the best players play, and talent eventually overcomes the stuff in front of it. When you've got a team like Atlanta or Carolina or others in the past couple of years where silly shit's been happening, I don't trust that's going to happen. So I don't mind saying, Atlanta's doing some dumbass shit. I just don't want to take players on that team. Now, again, but Bijan's on that team, but, a top 10 pick was on that team, but Drake London, but Kyle Pitts. Yes, I know. I get it. But part of my process is, if your front office doesn't know its ass from a hole in the ground, I don't expect things to run on time there. I just don't.
No, that might have been a worse pick than Penix by Atlanta. I don't like him. I think
they traded up. Like, that was like the worst thing in my opinion. Is like, no one seemed to have this guy that highly rated, and they traded up for him.
Well,
I think
did you see all the D tackles that went in the second? I think teams had him rated that high. I'm just surprised you trade up and take him over Johnny. Like, that's just.
I think
that's the dumb part.
I think every defensive tackle taken in the second is better than him.
So they
picked like 4 picks later. It was such a weird trade.
If you think about who was the team that got roasted the hardest last draft, post-draft, it was the team that took a running back and an off-ball linebacker in the first round. Both those guys turned out to be really, really good fantasy picks. So this year, the team that gets roasted for what they're doing probably most is the Falcons, because they took a quarterback to make sure they had one for the guy who's coming off Achilles injury, and they traded up for a defensive tackle that wasn't the defensive tackle that everyone thought they were going to take. So,
but there's massive difference though. The Lions drafted 2 good players. Like, no one disagreed that Jahmyr Gibbs was good. No one disagreed that Jack Campbell was good. They just weren't fan that they took non-premium players high. Atlanta did something completely different. Let's go dump $100 million guaranteed, and then also draft a quarterback, so that we negate any advantage of having a rookie quarterback contract, and also piss off the guy we just paid $100 million at the same time. Like, it's nonsensical what they're doing.
All right.
Well, most of the NFC East has recognized that you should have 2 starting quarterbacks throughout the season in NFL GMs. Apparently, it's trickling into the NFL in real life.
Well, we go from 2 D tackles to 2 tight ends. Chargers taking Eric All and Falcons taking Cade Stover. I said something about this in chat earlier, and this may fall in the category of things that only interest me. But Eric All would have been the pick that I had. I had the 304 before. I pre-drafted it, and Eric All would have been my pick here. So at first I'm like, I wonder if this was actually his pick, or if he if somehow, because I said it and it got traded and somebody didn't get erased, or is there some kind of issue? So I kind of checked back in on chat, and no major objection. So Chargers and I just have similar taste in things. I did say earlier in the podcast I was going to call the foul on myself too. I I had 304 this morning, and then going back to an offer I got for the 226 and 228, I offered the 304 for Josh Uche, thinking, wow, that contract that has him at less than $1 million. He's about 25 years old, coming off injury. Yeah, 304 for that sounds pretty fantastic. I had neglected to update my own mental database with, hey, dumbass, he got transition tagged. He's not 1 million, he's 15 million. So that rolled into a couple of other things, made him not worth the 304 to me, which is why he quickly got flipped again to New England for, I think it was a 324 and Ronnie Bell from the Niners. But yeah, that was one of those where it's I'm looking for this and I think this makes sense. And I didn't go back and update my value on a player based off of what happened in this offseason, and I got burned by it. So
I think Uche has been like 10 plus mil for like a year or two, Mike.
really?
Yeah. Because I had it at one point last year, and I had to ship him off for a cap dump.
He was tagged last year.
Yeah.
He was taken
And
last
then-
year? I thought that was this year.
Yeah, and then somebody extended him. I mean, it was at some point last year. I don't know.
Well, and then I'm even worse then. So, like I said, I'm gonna throw shit around here and give people shit for not doing things they should be doing. And yeah, 23 transition player tag, 23 trade extension. He's been that cost for over a year. So I just never circle back and change my value on the player. So dumb by me. I should be better. And when I ask others to be better, I'm not gonna say that without asking myself to be better. But like I said, things that maybe interest just me. The 304, Eric All to the Chargers, 305, Cade Stover to the Falcons. Falcons lost Waller, so maybe a little bit more looking for something right now, even though Stover's blocked by what's his name on Houston?
Ferguson, right?
No, that's
Yeah.
Ferguson.
Schultz. Yeah, Schultz.
Yeah. And then All is currently blocked by Mike Gesicki on Cincinnati. So neither will see the field immediately, but Chargers is in a position where he probably doesn't want him to see the field immediately. And just looking at the two players, I prefer All to Stover, which is why, again, would have taken him at the 304. So, like I said, it's a weird feeling to trade out of the pick and have it be the exact pick you thought it was, if it wasn't so, kind of chalk. But again, especially at this range, was a fun thing today.
Yeah, I like both the tight ends. I think there's a clear path for them to potentially, usurp their other white guys ahead of them.
Everybody likes the idea of Stover because Ohio State and CJ Stroud.
Yeah,
Well,
he's now wide receiver 1.
It's Stover is a one-trick pony. He's running the vertical in the seam.
Yeah, but that's what you want with Stroud. To me, that's like a great mix.
With Stroud as your
he could
quarterback.
be Isaiah Likely, right? Like he could get you 100 points this season. He's
Right.
going to have 5 to 8 games that are 10 plus points because he gets his 60-yard TD or something.
Yep. Why would he though? Because Schultz is just a better vertical threat anyway.
Right. So that's exactly the thing and why I had All over Stover is I don't see Mike Gesicki as a major blocker for Eric All in the long term. I do see Dalton Schultz and the way he plays that position and the role he plays that position in being a potential blocker for Cade Stover. Now, there's a lot of ways that it goes the other direction there, especially considering how long Schultz was buried in Dallas before he really broke out. But
I don't know. I think Dalton Schultz is pretty meh.
I thought he was too, but then Dallas franchise tagged him and traded Amari Cooper for a 6th. So who knows? I'll say this. I'm out of draft picks. And Tanner McLaughlin, tight end out of Arizona. The Bengals also drafted in the 5th. I would not be surprised if he out snaps all early until all gets healthy, because all is still not healthy, and he has not been healthy since he entered college. So he's a great player when he's on the field. I honestly love him, and I hope the best for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's a non-factor year 1, and then has to fight for a role year 2.
All right. Raiders up at 306, going Rasheen Ali in Baltimore. Again, I was trying to do the work. So King Henry is in Baltimore now. Justice Hill is in Baltimore. Keaton Mitchell is still in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Is Ali, I guess, RB4?
Yeah.
Now, or?
RB4, but I mean, at this point, it's not an unreasonable gamble. Henry's viewed as an aging asset, or like an aging player in the league. Justice Hill's like 27, if I'm not mistaken. He's just he's a special teamer that, like, when you need him, he plays well. And if I'm not mistaken, Mitchell is still on the mend. So he might get like some looks here and there, but nothing too crazy. But
I mean, if there's one thing we've learned from the Baltimore backfield the last, since Lamar's been there, is like they have a committee. They want bodies. They're inevitably, apparently, all going to suffer the same injury in the preseason, and they just need to have explosive bodies that they can use to complement Lamar. So,
yep,
I would want a piece of that backfield. I mean, I have a piece of that backfield. I would want more pieces of that backfield, just to reap the rewards of a Lamar offense.
Yep, and I think a couple of backfields throughout the NFL are like that. So whenever there's a rookie in that backfield, even if they are, a undrafted free agent or a 6th or 7th round pick, they always get, slightly overdrafted because they might get an opportunity.
I feel like especially
honestly,
because it's always like it's the Justice Hill game, or it's the Gus Edwards game, or I guess it's the Keaton Mitchell game or two on this. It's always if you're a running back in the Baltimore backfield, you're going to have one or two of them being your games in each given season. That's just the way it works.
I think there's a high likelihood he ends up on the practice squad. Baltimore has so many issues at so many positions, a far greater value, to where they need depth and they need to figure out what's going on more long term, especially going into Lamar getting paid. That I just think they have a lot of other guys they'll prioritize over him, to where he becomes the practice squad guy.
He might. Didn't Keaton Mitchell start the season last year on the practice squad?
I believe so. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that's the kind of player you're taking here over other guys. Like, that's just
for sure.
That's a serious dice roll.
Well, I mean, I think the majority of the running backs in this range are kind of that kind, and then just who, what team are they associated with, and how likely are they to get that look? And just to me, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things too. Like, you look at the Raiders. This is a good team, right? I think all of us think his team's good. He's got a chance to compete in the AFC West. This is one of those ones where it's like, if he takes the guy under him and adds another safety to where he goes, 3 safety deep, or he goes and takes something else, like he hits a single or double and then addresses running back by actually trading for a vet, it just makes a lot more sense than throwing this pick into a lottery.
Well, stop giving away my secrets.
All right.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning. Yeah, this is probably the last running back of this tier of 5th and 6th round picks, if I'm remembering correctly. And this is now the second running back on the Raiders roster behind the backup running back that is Zach Charbonnet.
Yep.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's still some interesting guys that are worth maybe 4th or 5th round grabs, but yeah, I think that's kind of the last of the run that we were on. RJ, you want to hit your pick here since you traded up again for a safety? I'm so disgusted by you, I just can't do it.
I'm sorry. I didn't know you hated the idea of like of safeties this early. I thought we were just out of the like late first round safeties.
Look, but you're double dipping. That's the
I know.
thing. I understand, and I'm the giant hypocrite for what 4 running backs in 20 picks, basically. Like, I get it. I don't practice what I preach. Great, thank you, congratulations, you've caught on.
No,
but
it's fine.
I'm doing it at an offensive premium position. You're doing it at fucking safety. Come on, what's going on here?
Yeah, another guy that I fully expect to just walk into a role that they have expectations of him playing every game and being a day one starter and just accumulating 50 plus tackles throughout the season. I honestly was shocked that he hadn't gone. I was really shocked when the Buffalo safety went above him. Pre-draft, I thought he was the best safety, Javon Bullard, and draft capital wise, he was safety 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was.
There was it was a cluster here at the end of the second, but yeah.
I'm pretty sure it went Newbin, Bullard, Bishop.
Yep. So I'm very happy with who I perceive as safety 1 and 2. I think this is a very good safety class where there are a handful that are expected to come in and just be really good, like above average to Pro Bowl level safeties.
I also think it's worth noting that RJ has now spent all of his 25 picks.
I have.
Yeah, so a note on Cole Bishop, because I wasn't here when you guys discussed him. He is a do everything bigger dude, and I expect him to play a lot more down towards the line of scrimmage. So he's definitely going to be a very productive safety in Buffalo, and he should definitely start early because there's not any competition really on that roster. And then Bullard, we talked about it a little bit pre-pod. I honestly think long term, I know they have Keyshawn Nixon right now, but his contract will be up, and I don't know whether or not they'll be paying him. You know, when you have to pay a quarterback, you have all these other guys. It's kind of hard to pay, you know, a Jair plus Nixon plus everybody else. So I think Keyshawn probably leaves, and I would believe Javon Bullard actually becomes our highest drafted corner out of this draft class because I think he slides into the nickel for Green Bay, and they use some of their later drafted safeties out of the same class to fill in at free safety and leave McKinney at the strong.
McKinney is definitely staying at the strong safety spot.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too crazy. Bullard was definitely one of those that was praised for picking the ball off, and that's something that Green Bay definitely wanted to improve on. So if he does show that as a free safety, I don't think it's crazy to expect him to be a corner. You know,
so he's on the Darnell Savage path, which is unfortunate.
You know,
since that didn't end well.
Right. Hopefully they just leave him at nickelback and then MFL just leaves him at safety. I'll be happy with that.
I mean, that's what happened with Savage, right?
Yeah.
All right. Staying on defense. Morris, you follow? We kind
of talked about these 2 picks.
As well as Tip Ryman. So Bills are still on the clock, waiting for them to get on and do their annual duty here. Right now, they are the second to last team to be on, besides the Packers as the commish. But again, we know Jeremy has been on as commish to process some things. So according to the league site, they're on the clock, and it's been the longest since they've been on the site. So might need to remind him in a couple of other places. But we've got plenty of people and plenty of leads with Eric, so I'm sure he'll get involved here shortly. We talked about, I'd say, most of the trades as they happened because they did impact the draft order. Just going to take a quick look to see if there were any that jump out since we talked on Monday that weren't necessarily draft related.
There's a lot of trades here since.
Well, I do have one important note to make about my last pick. I know how much you'll want it, Brandon, but you can't have my tip. Okay, I keep my tip to myself.
And that is why he was taken, so that jokes like that could be made.
The comedic value of that is absolutely worth a third-round pick.
Hendon Hooker has maintained a pretty respectable value in this league, and it's not for how he's played on the field.
Look, if anybody's looking for another hooker, I have acquired another one. This one, is a little bit better performing. So, I'm shocked that the Pats hasn't jumped that opportunity to have multiple hookers on his team. But there's now 2 available and productive hookers.
If you have one hooker, do you really need a second?
Yeah.
God.
Can you afford a second?
Hey, you got $1 million. Do you really need 2? Hey, you got a nice house. Do you really need 2? No, you don't need it. But damn it, sometimes it's just nice to have.
That's true.
All right. Let's see. Since the podcast, we've got, 21 trades that have gone down. Rousseau and 303 for 212 and 215. We could go back and try putting names to some of these picks and see if that changes our opinion on it. But, they weren't traded for those players at the time, so maybe it's a little unfair to do that. But since a lot of the stuff already got discussed, I'd say in terms of what the draft picks were, if you guys want to jump on any of the picks themselves being moved, I'd say let's do that here. Otherwise, I feel like we've covered it.
So 11 and 12 were Luke McCaffrey and Sanders.
It was 12 and 15.
Oh,
So it was
12 and
Malik
15.
Washington. Yeah.
So Sanders and then Malik Washington, which I guess 15 got moved again.
Yeah. I really don't like that trade just for the factor I don't feel Rousseau is a high-end pass rusher. Like you're given 2 mid-seconds for, I don't know. I just feel like you could swing that and have gotten better.
What?
I would prefer
like this.
Jared Verse to Gregory Rousseau. Jared Verse was 201. That's the value that these picks put on Greg Rousseau in here. And I think I would rather have Jared Verse.
I as a former Rousseau owner, I like Rousseau. I think he is really good against the run, and his production is just limited based on how often Buffalo cycles their defensive ends. But I think that's going to stop happening as much going into his second contract. So I think this is a fine value, to be honest. He also sent the 303 back, which is not irrelevant, right? So I don't know. I think this is about an early second of value.
All right. So commissions, if either of you are on, there is a trade for you to process. Let's see. Moving along here, we have Jordan Hicks going from the Eagles to the Broncos for Derek Forrest and the 228. Then Derek Forrest getting immediately flipped to the Panthers for Gerald Everett. Then to the Pats on the cap dump, and Segun Olabi to the Pats on a cap dump. So I'll pause there before I move on to other Patriots activities. Anything you guys want to highlight of that run?
Alubi was a taxi theft.
Thank you.
I don't really like Derek Forrest much. I'm not sure that he has a job. So I think anyone who's profiting off of him is doing well.
Yeah, so I considered him somebody that was, as of right now, regarded as a starter, but I could very much see him being a backup, almost a special teamer
Yeah.
by the end, like by the time we get to week 1. So I was not a big fan of him, and I was pretty open about that.
Well, you had him for approximately 5 hours.
Yeah. So I was in cap years hell, and I have been this entire process. So part of it for me was the value of getting rid of cap years, and I actually like Forrest. I think he's really solid, and as I've said, and I even have a bet with the Titans in here. Jeremy Chin has came in to be a nickel linebacker. He is not coming in to play strong safety. So Derek Forrest, to me, his role is very safe. They didn't add another guy that really plays the way he does, and he's played very good when he has played. He missed most of last year, but I'm cool with it.
All right. Like I said, Pat's continuing on, moving down from 215 to 222, picking up a 302 in the process. Broncos moving down from 223 to 228 to pick up Jeremy Ruckert in the process. As the team that initially drafted Ruckert, I loved what he could be, and I think he might be past that, but there's opportunity there.
I was shocked that he went just to move up 5 spots.
I liked Everett more as kind of like that like tight end 3. So if it cost me my tight end 4 to move up a couple of spots, I was fine with it. Sure. Like when you put the particular name to it, and we know what his draft capital was a few years ago, or was it last year? Yeah, it kind of sucked, but it was.
Well, I think you bought him from me for like 401. Potentially.
No, it was a 3rd round pick.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's a real steep 5 pick jump.
It was.
I think this is just Ohio State fandom. He's done nothing.
Yeah, but this is his year.
Every year is, right?
Yeah.
My tip's going to get more game than him year 1 as the 2nd string tight end. To an actual good tight end. Just bad.
Oh, gosh.
All right, so moving along.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of tip action in here.
You know it. Just the tip, just for a second. My initial reaction to this next one, Joey Bosa for Sam Howell on the 226, is when did Joey Bosa get valued at less than a first?
Well, I think there are some people in this league who value Sam Howell as a first in value.
So I was talking to one of the people involved in this trade, and when I found out some of the other offers that he was getting for Sam Howell, I was astonished. So like I see, like, knowing what other people value Howell at, I see how it got to Bosa, but I was shocked.
I honestly really like it for Saints. You know, when you have a quarterback of Will Levis and you have Drew Lock in the room, and then you get to also add Sam Howell, that's 3 good gambles in my book. So for an elder edge, when you're not, I don't really consider him as contending in the NFC South. I don't hate his roster. I don't hate what he's done. We'll see. But yeah, I thought it was pretty good for him.
He's definitely turned all of his assets into like younger assets with a better like window to capitalize on, and I do like that.
Yeah.
All right. This is a bit of my blue era here. I think I'm in 6 of these next 13 trades. I finally decided to give up on selling the Minnesota stack together because it just wasn't working. So Aaron Jones, PJ Locke, and the 328 heading to the Broncos for Zach Moss, Amani Hooker, and the 228. I move up to the late second from the late third. Go from a timeshare running back in a good offense to a timeshare running back in a good offense.
Who's more expensive?
Who's expensive. And then, of course, I do love those hookers.
I like this trade for both parties. Especially like you like gaining extra valuable things and turning Aaron Jones into something that is so closely valued in Zach Moss.
Yeah.
Like I think if you sold Zach Moss just as a standalone piece and sold Aaron Jones, like Moss would be worth roughly 75% of Jones, maybe slightly more, or like what you'd get back. And I just think that's fantastic, like everything else that you get back. And then I love that for like what Broncos gets back in the sense that he feels far more comfortable with Jones as a running back. He probably views Locke as a usable safety. At somewhat of a cheaper price and at the cost of just going down one round, like that's a very doable like price.
Well, he really needed the cap relief too. That's about $25 million swing for him.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
That then also that getting thrown in, and that adds great value to Broncos.
There's only 13. I think it's only 13 mil savings. But
Yeah.
Is Locke actually getting money? Oh yeah, Locke's wow.
is
Who the
9
hell
mil,
gave
yeah.
Locke $10 million? Okay.
We got some loose contracts in this league.
Yeah, there was definitely part of the conversation where it's like okay, I understand, you like the value, but I am taking on, at first I thought it was 17, but no, it was only 13 million. I'm like, that's a shit. That's not nothing. So
Right.
that did come up. I think Bucks got Noah Brown for me for close to free.
yeah, I could not believe he got a third.
Solid deal for Bucks.
Yeah.
Also, Bears gets a slightly more productive wide receiver, or what is assumed to be. I don't think
Yeah.
Noah Brown is completely useless. 300-400 yards, probably like his ceiling, and barring injuries and things like that.
Yeah.
But definitely a usable piece on a good contract.
Yeah, he'll still see the field due to his run blocking. Tank coming back from injury. Diggs having a meltdown. So
Right.
I think there's potential for Brown still.
And this being a comp pick, like I don't know if it's Bears comp pick, but I'm just gonna assume it was a pick that he got for just losing a player.
Yeah. Speaking of having something for free and then selling it for not free.
James, damn it.
Who is this guy?
Damn
He
it,
was,
James.
so he was a Canadian football player, drafted or went undrafted to Jacksonville. Looked really good in the preseason, made the practice squad, got cut or claimed or whatever by New England, went to New England, was with New England for essentially all year last year. So, Pats
Your
fan.
team, RJ.
And then, and then got cut and claimed by the New York Giants. And, the Giants suck. So anybody that is on that roster at quarterback's got a chance. So.
Wait, I don't know my team. I didn't realize my team claimed him.
Yeah, they claimed him and kicked Tommy DeVito to the road.
But still, look, if you guys are going to talk about trading Nathan fucking Rourke, like,
I don't want
unless you guys really got down on a Tuesday and hit happy hour really hard and say, you know what, fuck it, I'll give you a late fifth for Nathan Rourke. Like, there is no reason that trade had to happen.
You want to know how it actually happened? I claimed him, and I thought he would promote him, seeing the news that he went to New York. And then he didn't actually promote him. He just said, you can have him. And I'm like, fuck. So my buddy was literally in a meeting, and I sent him the fucking highlights, and I said, you can have him for your last fifth. He watched the highlights of him playing like 2 games in Jacksonville. He was like, sure. So,
Ew.
yeah.
All right, Samsonite getting down 226. I go from 228 to 226 for the price of Denzel Ward. I'm not trying to win games this year, so a $4.5 million corner means very little to me, especially considering he has trouble staying on the field and or producing fantasy points when he's on the field. So sure, I'll dump that contract and move up in the draft.
And then 2.5 hours later, get that pick back.
Yes. Well, he wanted to move down for more picks, and I have a lot more picks in that range. So that's what I did. 318, 325, and 416 to move up to 228. At some point, I'm going to have to make some hard decisions between players on my team and draft picks, and I'm going to try and do that on the Steelers side and, consolidate those where it makes sense.
Yeah.
JC Horn for Ravens 4th next year. Talked about the Uche fun already there, so I'll skip that. Panthers selling Jordan Davis for $309 and the 25th. Okay.
Yep.
Who insisted on that?
I did.
You insisted on his fucking future 5th?
Yeah, and then he had to pay. He had to pay $25 to send me his future 5th.
Got him.
So Jordan Davis went for the $309 and $25.
It's all right. You get it back in taxes.
That's beautiful.
You know what? I have been rendered speechless. I will give the golf clap to that because I can't beat that. Yes.
Feel free to print that trade out and frame it.
Hey, man, you gotta have some for fun, right?
Fucking future 5th, so he had to pay for next. God.
Yeah. And then I drafted the tip.
Just for a second, just to see how it feels. I'm just saying, you kind of have to trade him now. I don't want him. I mean, I had that grade on him, but I don't want him. But just so you can say, just the tip, just for a second, just see how it feels. All right.
Mike, your trade has been processed.
Oh,
RJ moving his 25 second for the 307 and the 317. Because if there's one thing in this world RJ needs, it's his safeties.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it also doesn't hurt when he takes half of his future second, turns one half into a safety, and the other half with the 514 for Trey Palmer.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't suck.
Nope. Doesn't suck.
yeah. I didn't see anybody of Trey Palmer's caliber available. So
For 317? Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
think so.
What do you guys mean? The Pats did something that wasn't good?
hey, he has two lotto tickets out of that.
We're not
mean-
counting the 5th, really.
I don't know.
We keep saying that, and I think it's all probably worth us going back at some point through our takes that we have of some of these trades and saying, all right, now that we know how they worked out, were we right or were we just fucking wrong?
Oh,
I don't know. He took Quentin Johnston. I told him that was fucking retarded. So, you know. It's okay. I took Spiller. We're in the same boat.
So we were talking about Denver backs, and this last trade just happened. Zach Moss, the 413, the 415, and the 437 for Samaje Perine, the 313, the 318, and the 325. I think Perine, because of his pass catching role, is going to be a useful piece next year. He may get faded into oblivion, but whatever. I will happily accept the risk and see if there's maybe a second round upside on that. And in the meantime, upgrade into this range where I really like what's in there in the third round. I have probably 50 players graded in this third round, and I think we'll end up with some nice stashes for me with good return. So for those that I was also shopping Moss for, will probably be surprised at that price, but I think some of the pieces I'm seeing here in the range I'll be able to get in the thirds I just picked up will allow me to kind of compensate and balance the equation there back towards what Moss is probably going for in a lot of leagues.
Well, you also put yourself in that pigeonhole of, oh, look how many RBs I now have. I can get rid of one.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to win. I am truly just trying to position for value right now. And I think of the 8 running backs I probably have on my team right now, I'll have 2 on opening day 8 that are still there.
Well, let's get off this podcast so I can try to trade for some of them.
Yeah.
So do I get bonus points when Tip pushes Trey Benson over the goal line?
In our hearts, yes.
Yes.
Look, it's okay to have a thing in this league.
It is.
Your thing is for tight ends drafted by Arizona. You just have to have them. Holy shit, we made it over 2 hours. I am impressed by us. Good job, guys.
Yeah. It's been a good podcast.
Good content. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. This is what we were billing on Monday, thinking, hey, there's no problem for us getting there. And we promised going back and doing the recap of the first round with the Haterade. I think we'll put some Haterade away and do that next week as we recap the last couple picks. I think we'll probably not do a third podcast this week and kind of reconvene next week as we wrap up the draft and move into the off season. Any closing thoughts before we shut it down and move to the fun part?
More trades.
More fucking trades.